Trisha, it's good to be back with you again around our series of dialogues over our program, Thinking with the Heart in Mind. And we've spoken in, in several of them around the program itself, around what we are hoping and looking forward to in its 2025 iteration. And we've also started exploring some of the, I suppose, the thematic elements of the program. Our last dialogue looked at attention and the quality of attention and why is it so important. And this conversation that I'm hoping to have with you, perhaps we can pick up the theme of doing versus being, which is another key theme in Thinking with the Heart in Mind, and have a dialogue around, I suppose, the question of, if we're exploring doing versus being, the question of what matters about being self-aware. What do you think matters about being self-aware?
Yeah, it's such a big question. I mean, the first word that comes up for me is choice. That's what matters about being self-aware, that you don't have choice without it, that we have this capacity. I think I referred to it in our dialogue on attention and on the quality of attention. We have this inordinate capacity for sleepwalking through life. And there's I mean, psychosis as a psychiatric diagnosis is no joke, but that and I don't want to, I don't want to come across as flippant about this, but there is a way in which we can be kind of like marginally psychotic all the time if we're not self-aware, because we fall into the trap of believing narratives that are not real. They're not real and they're not true. They're not accurate reflections of reality. So I think that's why it's so important to be self-aware, because it wakes us up, it gives us choice, it connects us to reality, and it's hopefully, I think in most cases does mean that we are making choices that are not just in our own best interests, but are in the interests of those around us and of the planet as well. And we know how important that is, especially in this day and age. So those are my initial thoughts. What do you think?
Mm. Yeah, I think self-awareness is often spoken about, um, certainly in popular psychology and leadership. Um, I'm not sure we always unravel what it really entails, and certainly if you come at it through the contemplative traditions and from a meditative lens, um, the invitation for self-awareness is to notice that what's moving through your mind and body, whether it's sensations or whether it's emotions and feelings or whether it's thoughts, this stream of phenomena is phenomena. It's not you. Um, but yet we most often are deeply entangled and identified with it. So we we can fall into the trap of thinking that self-awareness is about just being able to analyze our thinking or just being able to analyze our emotions. But actually it's a much larger promise and invitation. It's the invitation of stepping into something much greater than the sum of your thoughts and your emotions and your sensations. It's stepping into who you really are, your true essence, your true nature. And then from that place, looking at what's moving through, being aware of the phenomena of thought, of sensation, of emotions. And I think that really matters, like you, because most often when our thoughts or emotions emerge, we take this to be what's happening. So, you know, I'm angry and this situation sucks and that person is X, Y, and Z. And then that becomes our reality. And self-awareness invites us or offers us the opportunity to check our narratives. Often they're not always that pleasant, and informed very often by the negativity bias that we have. And so, we don't have to believe all our thoughts, just like we don't believe everything that we see out there in the world, the stuff that we read. We don't have to believe all our thoughts. And so I think it's in some ways it comes down to a feeling, sensing, quality that we offer ourselves, not only this larger vision of ourselves, but just in our own skin to feel more at ease. I think we often resist self-awareness work, or there's a tendency to resist self-awareness work because, ooh, I don't want to do all this navel gazing, or I don't want to look there, you know. But when you come from a place where you're looking at, knowing that you're greater than the sum of what you're looking at, then the feeling and the opportunity is for a greater sense of well-being and ease. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you've said a lot there, and I don't know, I don't know how much more I really have to add to this, Francoise, other than this feeling that I get as I listen to you speak about this, and that I also know from my own practice of access to peace of mind, and access to peace of being, the peace of being. And I just think that's so vital in the world today, because I think we're living in very turbulent times, and there's a lot of dis-ease in the world at large, and we're not able to separate ourselves from that. We're infected by it and affected by it. And so I think the practices and the weaving together of these two beautiful bodies of work that we're doing with Thinking in the Heart and Mind, and the intention that we have in the program to make available to people ways of actually accessing being, so that you can separate, access it and practice it and return yourself to it, so that you can, rise above I don't know if rise above is the right way of saying it. Actually, it's a little bit, we're back to that thing of language isn't always, language can sometimes feel clumsy when you're talking about certain kind of almost ineffable concepts like being. But I know from my own experience that it's possible to practice gaining access to it in a way that makes a more peaceful way of being in the world, despite the external stressors and the internal noise that, as you say, is passing through us. And I think it's hugely important, and I'm very proud of what we're making available for people in Thinking with the Heart and Mind. It's a drop in the ocean because it's a big topic, but I think it really works. I think it gives people hands-on access to things that can really make a difference in this regard. What do you think?
I think intention really matters. We don't always have control over how our actions land and how our behaviors experienced by others, which is why I think our intention really matters, because we can have these unforeseen consequences. And you know, John Kabat-Zinn, when I first encountered his work, but also when I first started teaching MBSR, there's a strong focus in mindfulness-based stress reduction around distinguishing between doing driven and being. And without the self-awareness, without being able to notice what's moving through us, we're driven by it. And even when we're driven by it, if we're not paying attention to our intention, you know, the potential for our actions and behavior to land in ways that generate unexpected consequences that may even be harmful is just exponentially greater. If we can root in as clear as possible intentionality, this is what I intend in this moment. I intend compassion, or I intend kindness, or I intend whatever it may be. I'm coming from this place of being where there is infused in me this wish for the well-being of others, the well-being of myself. If I can be in that quality, the quality of how that wish shows up in me, I think we gain access to something that's very profound and powerful. And I don't see how we're going to shift and make the changes we so desperately need in the world unless we start from there. So yeah, I'm wondering, Trisha, if you want to offer just maybe a moment's thought on what changes for you personally when you can access this capacity of being, of engaging the world from a place of being human, being from your being rather than being driven by your
Well,
doing.
thank you. Yeah, I think I think what changes for me is I suffer less. I suffer less. I think I can definitely claim that I cause less suffering when I'm coming from that place. I suffer less, and I feel as if I'm operating in accordance with reality, you know, so I feel sane and centered and like, you know, this is what's real and true, you know, this is who we are. And I also, when I'm coming from that place, I can access an enormous amount of compassion for self and others, and for the messiness of the human condition, because we've got this continuum that we're continuously sort of slip sliding along of doing and being, and finding a place of grounded, centered place to come from is an enormous relief. Yeah, so I think that's what changes for me. What about you?
I think I feel freer. And I think, I mean, as you know, I got a breast cancer diagnosis last year, and I spent the latter part of last year being treated for breast cancer. So I think being able to be with the stuff of life, including the stuff that you don't want to be happening to you, but it's happening to you anyway, because that's life.
Mm.
The capacity to be with it, even though it's not what I wanted or would have wished for or hoped for, it offered a profound resilience because I gained access to a sense of agency that, you know, I wasn't in control over, um, what was happening in my body and then the treatments that were being recommended. Of course, I had choices around that, but um, it's not like I went out and got breast cancer on purpose. You know what I mean? It happened. And being with the suffering of that experience in this, I suppose, almost paradoxical way, just enabled a resilience that I'm not sure I would have had if I hadn't had that capacity to just be with what's here.
Mm.
Mm. So maybe we can leave our dialogue there and rest our conversation and our thinking around being and doing driven, and the quality of self-awareness at this point. What do you think, Trisha?
Yeah. Like so many of these topics that we're exploring together, there's so much that can be said, but I think we've touched into this one in a beautiful way today, and I'm grateful for this time together thinking about it with you.